On Valentine's Day, lovers all over the world exchange flowers, teddy bears, and souvenirs to express their affection. Let's take a look. In Gaza City, florists and gift shops are brightly decorated in red as dozens buy Valentine's gifts for their lovers. In Gaza, there are no official Valentine's Day celebrations, but shop fronts in modern neighborhoods put out flowers and heart-shaped decorations to mark the special day. Young couples mark the occasion by dining out at restaurants in the evening. Others visit family and celebrate indoors. Many of the Valentine's Day celebrations in Gaza are downplayed. The Islamic Hamas movement, which took power in 2007, bans any large celebrations in hotels and restaurants for Valentine's Day, arguing the occasion is not Islamic. This year, Valentine's Day comes amid difficult conditions. The Gaza Strip is now in its 10th year of a tight Israeli blockade.
It is a day that reminds us of love amid our difficult conditions. I always mark this day with people I love. It is a day of showing love and devotion. Gaza needs more days for love. That is why people celebrate this occasion.
Gaza has been placed under a tight Israeli blockade since Hamas seized the territory by force in 2007. The blockade has pushed Gaza's 2 million population further into poverty. The employment rate has now hit 42.7%. International organizations and UN agencies say over 60% of Gaza residents do not have steady access to food. Hundreds of thousands rely on foreign food aid. A World Bank report says the Gaza Strip ranks third in the Arab region in terms of poverty after Sudan and Yemen. Despite the deteriorating economic situation, many are still celebrating Valentine's Day.
Everyone knows that the economic situation in Gaza is near to collapse. Despite this, some people still buy gifts for Valentine's Day. We have two kinds of customers. Customers who buy cheap gifts or some roses, and customers who are ready to spend hundreds of US dollars.
Gazans started to mark Valentine's Day when Palestinians began to return from foreign countries such as Egypt, Lebanon, and Syria, where they have fled. Many returned after the peace accords of the 1990s. Internet and satellite channels have also helped spread the idea among the young educated and secular population. For the most part, the Valentine's Day is not celebrated in Gaza. The majority of Gazans are conservative Muslims who believe that only Muslim holidays should be observed. But still, there are some who use the occasion as a way to forget their difficult conditions. Valentine's Day celebrations differ from country to country and from culture to culture. In Nigeria, however, Valentine's Day is a kind of like a second Christmas. Many Nigerians look forward to the occasion with much preparation and shopping. The day itself is hallmarked with a lot of gift-giving. Gift shops across the nation are busy with young and old couples alike, despite the harsh economic realities of the country. People from all walks of life rush to shops to make the most of deals on gifts such as cars, chocolates, teddy bears, and perfumes. Young women go to beauty salons to give themselves a makeover in anticipation for the day. They have their nails and hair done to make themselves especially beautiful for their partners. Men visit flower shops to buy expensive roses and exotic flowers to impress their loved ones.
Celebrate love and show love.
We celebrate and show love every day, but Valentine's Day is a day to let your partner know that you are reigniting the love you have for him or her.
That you are reuniting the love which
I will get some chocolates for my wife, some perfume, and a nice red gown for the Valentine's celebration.
In Kenya, flower farmers from Naivasha prepare roses for export. Many say demand for flowers ahead of Valentine's Day has risen. Industry reports say demand for Kenyan flowers in the EU market has risen by 5% ahead of Valentine's Day. Slow growth has been attributed to Britain's decision to withdraw from the EU, which has weakened the sterling pound. But George Onyango, a manager at Van den Berg Flower Farm, said demand has shot up by 20% compared to December 2016.
Compared to last year and production this year, basically our production is a bit stable, is just within the same range. We are running to about 5%.
Speaking at a farm that produces 500,000 roses a day, the manager said the sector had a bright future despite challenges. However, he said a failure of the economic partnership agreement was a major threat to the lucrative sector. The manager warned failure to sign agreement in time would mean a new tax on the country's floriculture products. This would make them less competitive in the market.
Our main challenge currently is with the economic partnership agreement. That's where we are seeing we are going to have a very big challenge, simply because if we don't sign that agreement on time, then our produce that we are sending to the European countries will attract taxation. In essence, increasing the cost of us sending our products to the European markets.
The Kenya flower industry is betting on this year's Valentine's Day to increase sales volume after a disappointing performance last fall. Industry players predicted earlier this week that demand for red roses will peak around Valentine's Day in local and overseas markets. Kenya Flower Council CEO Jane Ngig said that they were following the issue of the agreement. On Valentine's Day, the CEO admitted there was minimal change in demand compared to last year. However, she stressed the sector was doing well. She added that the fallout from Brexit had devalued the sterling pound by 15%, meaning lower returns for farmers. As Valentine's Day was being celebrated around the world, British artists welcomed the day in their own way. British artists have created meat bouquets featuring a selection of hung grouse, pheasant and quail alongside fragrant botanicals. For this year's Valentine's Day products, Sam Bompas and Harry Parr were inspired by the Victorian meat bouquets once presented to royalty. The Victorian super chef Alexis Sawyer created the bouquets in a radical reimagination of romance. Two artists are using the same ingredients to present the 21st century's meat bouquets. These bouquets can be hung to enhance their taste and be enjoyed as a showpiece in every household. They can then be prepared, cooked, and consumed for two.
Our historic inspiration presented a game bird bouquet, so we wanted to do the same. So you know that game has to rest, it has to hang to get all those unctuous flavours ready, and that's exactly the same principle we thought would apply. The bouquets themselves are almost entirely edible, and they present quite a fun activity for a couple. So not only do you get it, you then get to prepare the game together, which is pretty feral. You've got to pluck and skin those birds before cooking them off, but ultimately it's tasty and rewarding.
Each meat bouquet comes with a special alcoholic love potion. According to Sam, 5 couples will be chosen to get the gifts. On Valentine's Day, these lovers can come together to celebrate their happiness as well as enjoy the meat bouquet's sweet surprise.
And it's hard to think what people's reaction is going to be, so we're just going to wait and see. And if someone gave this to me, I would be utterly thrilled and delighted. Other people may find it pretty aggressive, actually, and you've got some dead animals coming away on a day meant for love. But ultimately, when they see that project through with their loved ones, I'm sure they'll all be smiling and be closer together.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you very much, Rose. Cheers.
Researchers at University College London have developed a new method that may overcome antibiotic-resistant bacterial cells.
The team used equipment to measure the mechanical force that 4 different antibiotics exerted on bacteria. It found that the force exerted on antibiotic-resistant bacteria varied significantly. An antibiotic named oritavancin was pressed into antibiotic-resistant bacteria with a force 11,000 times stronger than vancomycin, another antibiotic. Oritavancin is a fast-acting antibiotic that can kill the bacteria in 15 minutes. Vancomycin takes 6 to 24 hours. Dr. Joseph Diarira said that modifying existing antibiotics will help them create a new generation of antibiotics. These can then be used to tackle multi-drug resistant bacterial infections.
What are we going to learn from these antibiotics? So we've basically learned, one, that resistant bacteria can actually be killed by antibiotics. That's one. We've also learned that different antibiotics can induce different mechanical forces on the cell. We've also learned that by modifying existing antibiotics, we can actually make them more effective to kill the bacteria.
Oritovancin molecules are good at sticking together to form clusters, meaning they can kill bacteria more effectively. Dr. Joseph Diayira explained that when two clusters dig into a bacteria's surface, they push away from each other. As a result, they tear the surface, killing the bacteria in the process. Research also identified the surface conditions that best encourage clustering. This will allow scientists to make antibiotics even more effective.
I think basically the most important part that we learned from this study is that we need to understand how the antibiotics work at the molecular level. And once we have understood this, it becomes more clearer to know exactly how to develop a drug that will be more effective. And just an example is that because we have used commercially available drugs, like oritovancin is already have been approved by FDA, and so to vancomycin. And we now know exactly how they work. We hope that it will not take long for us to be able to develop more effective antibiotics.
The research team created a mathematical model to explain how antibiotics behave at the surface of bacterial cells. The model could be used to screen potential new antibiotics.
The 2017 International Women's Trade Expo kicked off in Nepal's Kathmandu on Tuesday. The 5-day event, organized by Federation of Women's Entrepreneurs Association of Nepal, is now in its second year. It showcases and promotes different products made by women entrepreneurs from across the country. Let's have a look. The expo organizers said the main objective of the event is to promote women's entrepreneurship and develop trade relations between entrepreneurs, importers, and exporters. The expo has 100 stalls with around 200 women entrepreneurs from across 75 regions of the country. Expo entrepreneurs are promoting products ranging from handicrafts, tea, embroidery, craft works, and paper arts to educational materials. The event comes at a time when more and more women are taking up entrepreneurial activities. Many have already achieved tremendous success in a country where entrepreneurship has traditionally been seen as a male activity. EMA Impacts is one example of successful women-led entrepreneurship. The company has been trading hand-woven Dhaka fabric and handicrafts for the last 20 years. This traditional pattern weaving is handmade and usually done outdoors on wood and bamboo treadle looms. The products have high demand in both national and international market.
After the earthquake, our business had gone down, but now it's reviving gradually. Earlier, we targeted mainly at foreigners, but these days we've got more Nepali customers. They mostly like Dhaka saris, caps, and purses.
Small and medium enterprises have proved to be an effective way for increasing women empowerment and economic development in Nepal. Currently, women own over 14,000 small and medium enterprises in Nepal. They account for 2% of GDP and employ over 200,000 workers. Many of these enterprises have provided good job opportunities to housewives.
Earlier, I had around 200 staff, but now the number has decreased. All my staff are women. This craft work doesn't require specific education. Any woman can do the job after short training. My major aim is to empower the women who are sitting idle in their houses by engaging them.
Most of their products are exported to foreign countries with a huge business turnover every year. The products have not only gained recognition on the international stage, they have also given livelihoods to thousands of households. Female entrepreneurs from India, China, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Pakistan, and the Philippines were also participating in the expo. Shinju Bookstore of Kathmandu displayed the Chinese stationery items in the expo. Female entrepreneurs believe the expo offers a good chance to showcase their potentials, attract investment, and expand their businesses. They can also create a network with international women entrepreneurs. Marketing companies such as EAN Multipurpose Cooperative also participate. The company has been increasing women's capabilities through training, loan provisions, counseling programs, and effective marketing. Navarro's is one of their happy clients. It has been doing business in Nepal for the last 25 years, making around $10,000 a year.
Navarro's has around 35 varieties of pickles, including candies, chocolates, and tea. We have received a huge support from cooperative. As a reputed brand, our products are sold in international, national, and local level. We mostly export to Germany, Japan, and Australia. The business is expanding.
Recently, the government has also been supporting female entrepreneurs in Nepal. It established Entrepreneurs Development Fund, allocating about $1.4 million for the promotion of entrepreneurship. The Women's Trade Expo Fair will conclude on February 18th. The 2017 Nice Carnival, one of the largest carnivals in Europe, has opened to enthusiastic crowds. The two-week festival has attracted 400,000 visitors and demanded high security.
The opening parades did not make their normal route past the Promenade des Anglais, where a Laura terror attack killed 86 people 7 months ago. Access to the parade was controlled by 200 private security agents posted on 36 security checkpoints. 130 municipal police officers were also mobilized. The increase in security met the 133rd edition of Nice Carnival open in a colder atmosphere than usual.
This year, there are specific measures. More than 100 police officers were mobilized. Meanwhile, the very technical projects allow us to reinforce security everywhere, on the ground, in the air, and also underground.
Organizers of Nice Carnival spent 300,000 euros over the 6 million euro budget to reinforce security. Local media reported costumes are forbidden this year, as are toy weapons. These new measures have been implemented to reassure the public. The opening ceremony began with one of this year's main figures, the so-called King of Energy. Many floats echo various sources of energy: electric, fossil fuel, and wind power. The flower battle, one of the carnival's tradition, remained one of the highlights this year. Around 3,000 flowers were used per float, with almost 70% being locally produced. The event celebrated the floral heritage of the region. Flowers were distributed to almost all the public, making the Palace Massena a steal of flowers.
This year's carnival is magnificent. The flowers are amazing and there's a lot of percussion music. It's great.
Despite the security alert, the excitement of the carnival let visitors enjoy a carefree moment without worrying about possible dangers. Many visitors came especially for the festival from neighboring countries.
Yes, it's the first time. It's great. The atmosphere is so good. It's so nice. We don't even think about the security issues, otherwise we couldn't go anywhere.
Others have a different view.
The atmosphere must be less warm because of the attack last year. It's a pity, but still splendid.
The Nice Carnival has a long history. The term carnival is mentioned for the first time in Nice in 1294. In 1873, the festivities committee was set up in the city and float parades began.
China has over 700 million internet users and is some of the world's leading tech companies. Most of them are exploring the new opportunities in AI, the Internet of Things, and virtual reality. This year, driverless cars designed by Chinese search engine giant Baidu has taken the center stage.
Compared to the West, China started late in digital technology research, but recent progress has been impressive. Among the Chinese winners was search engine Baidu's artificial intelligence creation, Baidu Brain. Before the Third World Internet Conference held in Wuzhen in East China's Zhejiang province last year, a fleet of 15 blue-striped cars had cruised one of Wuzhen's main thoroughfares. According to Baidu's artificial intelligence unit, the cars can analyze traffic flow and control their maneuvers automatically.
The model of cooperation is almost the same in China and the US. The internet company has to reach out to automobile manufacturers. It's the same in the US, as Google doesn't manufacture vehicles itself but works jointly with Toyota and Benz. So in the field of auto-driving, China and the US are two leading countries in the world. We all hope the technology can be used in people's daily life as soon as possible.
According to the company's president, about 15% of the company's revenue was spent on research and development, most related to AI. That equals to 10 billion yuan, or nearly 1.5 billion US dollars investment last year. Today, Baidu has developed a range of AI applications around its deep learning AI system Baidu Brain, from self-driving cars to image and speech recognition systems. A think tank report has shown China's AI research attracted 146 investments amounting to 2.6 billion US dollars in 2015. China has the second largest number of AI-related startups and technology patents in the world after the US.
AI has been on fire since 2016. Everyone is watching it closely. But it is still unclear to many what will it bring to individual, to every industry, even every country. I get excited every time when I think about all those possibilities. For example, we could only watch the still driverless Baidu cars 1 year ago, but now we can test drive them on roads.
However, when it comes to self-driving specifically, there is still a huge gap between China and the US.
China is still far behind the US in the field of the driverless technology. The US has reached our current level of research and applications about 10 years ago. The US has the advantage of an early start, and it has the accumulation in the core technology. China is an internet giant, but not a powerful one. We are just at the beginning of the self-driving aspect. It does not mean that we are leading the trend of the world. The differences are reflected in the core skills, such as the key sensor, operating system, and the basic database.
As more and more companies develop their self-driving cars, safety issues arise, especially after a driver of a Tesla operating on an automated driving system died of a collision with a truck in Florida in May, America's first fatality concerning the new technology. A traffic law amendment bill is prepared by German Transport Ministry to regulate the autonomous driving. According to a report, the technical system can take the wheel under certain circumstances, but drivers must take the ultimate responsibility with being able to dominate and stop the driving anytime. The system itself should recognize its own limits and be able to optically, acoustically, or textually indicate when the driver must intervene, usually in the case of technical problems or bad weathers.
The ethic issue is concerning not only the academic circles, the industry, but also many governmental officials in the world. How to teach the machine or the software to judge the ethical situation. In a test before, a driverless car has chosen to hit pedestrian, undoubtedly among cars and bikes. It made the decision from a machine's aspect, but not from humanistic care. But in the society, it's unacceptable. So it will involve many issues about the society and the law. It needs all of us to consider and arrange in advance.
云天无际，承载梦想。中国南方航空是中国运输飞机最多、航线网络最发达、年客运量最大的航空公司。亚洲第一，全球第三，是南航缔造的业界奇迹。蓝天壮志情，云海谱华章。
Coming up, U.S. Federal Reserve Chairwoman Janet Yellen says the Fed is on course to raise interest rates at one of its upcoming meetings. U.S. President Donald Trump is promising to create jobs as he signs legislation rolling back a regulation from the Dodd-Frank financial oversight law. Toshiba chairman Shigenori Shiga has resigned over huge business loss. Hello and welcome to this edition Current Report. I'm Du Yang in Beijing. First, let's take a look at global markets. In Asia, Chinese stocks closed lower on Wednesday, with the benchmark Shanghai Composite Index down 0.15%. Hong Kong stocks rose up 1.24%. In Japan, Tokyo stocks closed higher Wednesday as a comparatively weak yen against the US dollar lifted exporter issues and comments made by US Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen suggesting interest rates may be raised sooner than expected underpinned the broader market. The 225-issue Nikkei stock average added 1.03%. On the currency front, the US dollar extended gains against the most major currencies on Tuesday after Federal Reserve Janet Yellen's remarks implied a faster pace of interest rate hikes. Oil prices rose Tuesday as reports showed major global oil producers complied with the deal to ease supply glut last month. Gold futures on the COMEX division of the New York Mercantile Exchange fell on Tuesday as traders reacted to Federal Reserve Chairwoman Janet Yellen's speech on Tuesday. Now let's take a look at the U.S. stocks from correspondent Sun Omeng in New York.
Okay, let's take a look at the stocks market. U.S. stocks wavered and ended higher on Tuesday as investors digested the comments from Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen. Yellen gives her semi-annual monetary policy testimony before the Senate Banking Committee Tuesday morning. It marks the first time Yellen testified following President Donald Trump's election. In prepared remarks, Yellen said that waiting too long to raise the interest rate would be unwise given the rise in inflation and the economic growth. On the economic front, the producer price index for final demand increased 0.6% in January, seasonally adjusted, beating market estimates of 0.3%, the U.S. Labor Department reported Tuesday. This is Omeng reporting from New York Stock Exchange.
U.S. Federal Reserve Chairwoman Janet Yellen has said the Fed will consider whether to raise interest rates at one of its upcoming meetings. The bank's next meeting on monetary policy is scheduled for March 14th and 15th. If it decides to raise interest rates, it will be for only the third time in a decade. The Reserve had kept its main lending rate at near zero for 7 years, before raising it in December 2015 and again last December. Addressing Congress for the first time since Donald Trump became president, Yellen repeated that Fed expects to raise rates gradually.
At our upcoming meetings, the committee will evaluate whether employment and inflation are continuing to evolve in line with these expectations, in which case a further adjustment of the federal funds rate would likely be appropriate.
The chairwoman also gave an upbeat assessment of the economy, saying that the economy has continued to make progress toward a maximum employment and price stability objectives. She expected that the economy would continue to grow at a moderate pace, with job market strengthening further and inflation closer to the Fed's 2% target. Yellen acknowledged that the fiscal policy and other economic policies, which might be introduced by the new administration, could affect the U.S. economic outlook.
Of course, it is too early to know what policy changes will be put in place or how their economic effects will unfold.
She suggested that fiscal policy should aim towards boosting productivity, providing long-term economic growth, and help raise living standards for the American people. During the question and answer session, Yellen said that the review of financial regulations was a legitimate and important goal, and she would work with the Treasury Secretary and other regulators to conduct a thorough review of the regulations. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed a bill to repeal regulation requiring energy companies to disclose payments to U.S. or foreign governments for commercial development. The regulation was first passed by the Securities and Exchange Commission under the 2010 Dodd-Frank financial reform law. It mandated energy companies listed on the U.S. stock market to report on royalties and other payments to governments, including those relating to oil, natural gas, and coal. Republicans and U.S. energy companies contended the regulation put U.S. companies at a disadvantage with foreign competitors. Rex Tillerson, now Secretary of State, was one of the leading opponents during his time as CEO of ExxonMobil Corp. Democratic lawmakers criticized the move. They argued that repealing the rule would mean millions of dollars of U.S. citizens and investors would go to corrupt foreign oligarchs. Official data show Greek economy contracted by 0.4% in the fourth quarter of 2016 compared with the previous quarter. Greece's State Statistics Office said Tuesday that the GDP fell by 0.4% in the final quarter of last year. The figures allowed 2 straight quarters of quarter-on-quarter growth after a period of recession. Third quarter growth was 0.9%. Analysts have been expecting the growth to continue. Despite a quarterly contraction, the Greek economy grew 0.3% as a whole in 2016. This is only the second time the annual GDP has grown since 2008. News comes amid fears of a new debt crisis that could again endanger Greece's place in the Eurozone. Fears of more instability follow months of failed talks between Athens and its Eurozone and IMF creditors. Top EU economics official Pierre Moscovici is due to meet with Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras on Wednesday in Athens. The talks are aimed at unblocking bailout negotiations. The European Parliament renewed discussions of the sovereign debt crisis at a debate on Tuesday. IMF and the EU auditors will be looking to see how the promised economic reforms have been implemented. These were promised by Greece in exchange for rescue funds. The EU last gave the country financial support in August 2015, Greece's third financial bailout since 2010. MEPs, however, called for more urgent action to improve the situation. A Greek government spokesman said Tuesday that Greece expected a political solution with its international lenders. He hoped to conclude a pending bailout review by the forthcoming Eurogroup meeting next Monday. He also stressed he did not want to burden the Greek people with additional austerity measures. Greece faces debt repayments of 7 billion euros this summer, but the country will not be able to afford these without holding up new loans from international lenders. Staying in Europe, and with the news that Eurozone GDP growth has been revised down slightly for the end of last year.
Economic growth in the Eurozone has been slightly revised down in the fourth quarter 2016 to 0.4%. This compares to a preliminary estimate of 0.5% released 2 weeks ago. Eurostat, who released the official data on Tuesday, also revised down its estimate of the year-on-year quarter 4 GDP to 1.7% from 1.8% of the previous estimate. The revision was partly due to a slump in industry production in December 2016. Despite European figures, Germany's economy continued to grow in the fourth quarter, thanks to higher consumer sentiment and a boom in the construction sector. Federal Statistics Office Destatis reported that GDP in the last quarter rose by 0.4% from the previous quarter. GDP has risen in the first 3 quarters by 0.7%, 0.5%, and 0.1% respectively. With 4 consecutive rises, Destatis estimated that German economy to be 1.9% larger for the year. The agency attributed the growth to an increase in domestic demand. Government consumption expenditure was up significantly, and that household final consumption expenditure rose slightly again. However, foreign trade proved to be a drag on growth, with price-adjusted quarter-on-quarter imports rising faster than exports.
Let's turn to China. China's foreign trade continues to face downward pressure despite improvements in January.
Foreign Trade Department official Wang Dongtang said Tuesday that unstable factors are increasing and difficulties are not short-term. He added that a rise of trade protectionism, slow overseas demand, and increasing domestic production costs are possible constraints on future exports growth. But Wang also said that foreign trade had not fundamentally changed. China still has advantages in this regard. This year's trade started with a strong rebound. Exports and imports were both up significantly. The ministry will continue to implement pro-trade policies and strengthen trade cooperation with countries in the Belt and Road Initiative. Data from the People's Bank of China showed Chinese banks approved 2 trillion yuan, or about $291 billion of new loans in January. This was up from 1 trillion yuan a month ago. The increase was 475 billion yuan less than that of the same period last year. Bloomberg economist Tom Warlick said China's banks always start the new year with a bang, maxing out loans to high-quality corporate borrowers. New private investment increased by 262 billion yuan from a year ago to 3.7 trillion yuan. The figure was 1.6 trillion yuan in December 2016. In January, yuan-dominated deposits rose nearly 1.5 trillion yuan, down from a year earlier. At the end of January, total outstanding yuan-dominated loans went up 12% from the previous year. Outstanding deposits in both yuan and non-yuan currencies rose 10% year-on-year. Warlick said China's economy is continuing to leverage up. However, it is now doing so at a slower and more sustainable pace, forecasting a continuing, cautious, and incremental tightening.
Let's take a look at some company news. A U.S. court has approved a plan for Volkswagen to pay $1.22 billion to fix or buy back 80,000 cars following an emissions scandal. Volkswagen could be forced to pay more than $4 billion unless it gets regulatory clearance for the plan involving 3-liter diesel engines. The company has already agreed a deal covering 475,000 2-liter cars. It will receive a final ruling in May. The court also gave preliminary backing to a separate deal involving Bosch. Volkswagen German car parts supplier had proposed a settlement of $327.5 million to U.S. diesel VW owners. San Francisco U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer will hold a final hearing on May 11th on the VW and Bosch deals. VW has now agreed to pay up to $25 billion in the U.S. to settle claims from car owners, environmental regulators, U.S. states, and dealers. The U.S. has also charged 7 current and former VW executives with law violations. Toshiba chairman Shigenori Shiga has resigned. The move came hours after Japanese conglomerate revealed details of a multi-billion-dollar loss. Earlier, Toshiba had delayed issuing its results. It then said it was set to report a net loss of approximately $3.4 billion in the year up to March 2017. The company said expected to take a $6.3 billion in its U.S. business. The situation has led some analysts to warn the company's future is at risk. A bribery settlement and a pound's drop in value have pushed engineering giant Rolls-Royce to record loss. The jet engine maker reported a loss before tax of $5.7 billion for 2016. However, after one-off costs were discounted, the company's underlying profit was better than many experts had predicted. Rolls-Royce said the outlook for this year was a modest performance improvement. Chief Executive Warren East said more are needed to be done to improve profit margins. Rolls-Royce has been a separate company from the car maker since 1971. China marks the 15th anniversary of its accession into the WTO, ending its protection period to prepare the market for global competition. Over the past 15 years, the country has grown into the world's second-largest economy and the largest trading country, while millions of Chinese have been lifted out of poverty. China, now a major engine for the world economy, has embarked on a new journey of opening up that's sure to bring more benefits to the country and the world.
China joined the WTO as its 143rd member on December the 11th, 2001. The accession has greatly lifted China's trade by removing barriers for Chinese products to enter the global market. Over the years, China's total import and export volume has grown nearly 8-fold from $0.5 trillion in 2001 to nearly $4 trillion in 2015. The trade boom has secured a nearly double-digit growth miracle for China over the period, making the economy the second largest in the world. Despite slower growth in recent years, China's economy still contributes a quarter of the world's growth, while in 2001, the number was just 0.5%.
Well, I think China's contribution to global trade growth really has been unprecedented since it joined the WTO in 2001. No other country has ever increased its share of global trade as rapidly as China has since it joined the WTO.
The 15 years not only saw China's rise as an economic power, but also witnessed it sharing prosperity with the rest of the world. China has changed its role from a newcomer to an active participant and promoter of the WTO. Dubbed the factory of the world, China manufactures everything from toys and shoes to bullet trains and industrial robots. From 2001 to 2015, thanks to imported goods from China, consumers around the world saved billions of dollars. Quality yet inexpensive Chinese products contributed to an increase in consumer purchasing power and helped reduce worldwide poverty.
I think China's played a very major role. A lot of countries have benefited from the increased opening of the China market. A lot of firms have benefited, and especially a lot of consumers have benefited. Sometimes we lose track of that, but in the United States, the biggest beneficiaries of China's increased role in trade are actually lower income people that tend to buy a very large share of the products that China is so strong in production.
In the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, China's strong demand for imports has been a major stabilizing factor amid a sluggish world economy.
Now, when the Great Recession hit in 2008-2009, the fact that China was one of the few countries not affected, continuing to buy goods from other parts of the world, goods and services, this helped those countries stabilize their economies and help them to get back on their feet.
China today is not just a manufacturing powerhouse, but is also rapidly emerging as a vast consumer market. Countries as diverse as Zambia, Australia, Brazil, and the United States have seen their exports to China soar. China's imports have surged from $244 billion to $1.7 trillion in 15 years, an average annual growth of over 10%. For many developing countries, the Chinese market has been vital in ensuring growth and development stay on track.
I believe in 2001, China's share of global trade was around 2 or 3%. Nowadays, it's around 14%. So it's the single biggest, exporter and the second biggest importer, and its share of global trade continues to rise, even in recent years when global trade has slowed down.
China has also been ready to help poorer partners develop. As the world's second biggest investor, the country's outbound direct investment rose for a 13th straight year in 2015, reaching a record high of $146 billion.
We've seen China's trade, its exports, increase 8.5 times. Imports, very important imports, and I'll come back to that, up by 7 times. We've seen inward foreign investment into China soar over $100 billion in each of the last 5 years, and China is now actually investing more and more overseas as well.
In the 15 years of WTO membership, China fulfilled its commitment by cutting its tariff from over 15% to less than 10%, demolishing non-tariff barriers and widely opening up the domestic market. It also revised laws and regulations in accordance with WTO rules and took concrete steps to promote market reforms. It has been a major contributor to invigorating the world trade and a game changer to reshape the global economic landscape.
So the Chinese are participating, I think, more actively. They've got lots of good ideas. This is a system that they care about a lot. You're seeing Chinese leadership in evidence in many other fora internationally, whether it's the Asian Infrastructure Bank or the New Investment Bank or the One Belt, One Road initiative. All of these things show that China is keen to create international tools to help with development, to help with economic growth, and to help stabilize relations between countries.
The country has become a favored destination for foreign investment. In 2015, foreign capital in China reached $126 billion, 2.7 times greater than 2001. Over the past 15 years, foreign invested industrial enterprises reported combined profits of around 2.2 trillion US dollars.
Now, in part, that's because China liberalized, reduced tariffs, reduced non-tariff barriers. It's also in part because China opened up even more to foreign investment. Foreign companies moved into China. In many cases, they produced goods in China and then exported them to the global market.
Despite those achievements, China's road in the WTO is not without obstacles. A major source of friction between China and other countries is the made-in-China goods. Some countries complain the massive inflow of China's low-priced products impair their domestic industries and cost jobs.
When you import 1.7 trillion and export 2.2 trillion every year to every country in the world, it's inevitable there's going to be some disputes. As a percentage of the overall trade, it's very small. But with volume that big, you're going to have some. That's why the countries that are involved in disputes the most are the big countries, because they trade the most products with the most countries.
Under surrogate country approach, WTO members use costs of production in a third country to calculate the value of products from countries on its non-market economy list, which includes China. The practice allows countries to easily levy high tariffs in trade disputes. China has already launched dispute settlement procedures at the WTO regarding the approach, pushing for members to respect the automatic expiration of that 15-year provision.
In accordance with Article 15 of the Accession Protocol, signed when China joined the WTO in 2001, WTO members should stop using the surrogate country approach to conduct anti-dumping investigations on Chinese exports by December the 11th this year. All members should fulfill their obligations in this regard.
At present, nearly 150 countries worldwide have recognized China's market economy status, but other members such as the US, Japan, and the EU are still delaying the recognition.
So it's not a WTO Secretariat issue. It's a controversy among the WTO members, and they will use professionally the WTO solution. I mean, the multilateral dispute settlement mechanism to solve it.
I think the result should be, ultimately, that China is treated in the same manner as all other WTO members for purposes of calculating anti-dumping duties, which, in my view, was the original deal that China negotiated when it joined the WTO.
Amid the surge of protectionism in global trade, China has expressed that it will continue to open its economy and engage proactively in globalization. The country has shown the world that being open and being part of an open economy is of great importance to make a robust global recovery. Looking ahead, China will remain a center of trade and other global activity, playing a leading role in global governance. As China plans to be more proactive in opening up to the outside world, its stable growth will produce more benefits for the world.
专业的团队，丰厚的经验。
Welcome to Chicago. Welcome to the Lake Cook Law Group.
投资理财、法律咨询，芝加哥专业律师团队为您的梦想提供最安全的保障。
春有百花，秋有月，夏有凉风，冬有雪。若无闲事挂心头，便是人间好时节。好来好往好聚首，春去秋来再团圆。苦尽甘来人自省，平平淡淡无一生。啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦。春有百花，秋有月，夏有凉风，冬有雪。若无闲事挂心头，便是人间好时节。好来好往好聚首，春去秋来再团圆。苦尽甘来人自省，平平淡淡无一生。啦啦啦啦。